Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on planning a sustainable food system in celebration of Sustainable Gastronomy Day, which was observed yesterday. We are going to highlight how proactive planning can help aid the effort towards a sustainable food system at every step of the food chain, as there are many challenges currently facing the globe in regards to food supply and security. So I'm glad to share that today we are joined by experts from industry, academia, and also policymakers who share their knowledge, experience, and current projects that they are working on in order to address those challenges. So on today's agenda, there are 4 speakers and full panel sessions, as well as a fireside chat with a former agri-food techpreneur who will share his experience with us. And for the panel session, we invite you to drop questions in the chat at any point during the webinar, and we will try to address them as the time allows. So with that out of the way, I'll try to I introduce you Ifeyinwa Kanu, our first speaker. She's the founder and CEO of IntelliDigest, who is working tirelessly to make a difference in the food system in any way possible. She loves nature and is passionate about engineering solutions to address environmental and societal challenges. She is leading IntelliDigest on a mission to empower global food sustainability, eliminate food waste, and achieve zero hunger. Dr. Kanu is an Enterprise Fellow of Royal Academy of Engineering and Royal Society of Edinburgh. She is a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and an Associate Fellow of UK Higher Education. She is also a champion of the STFC Food Network. With that, I will hand over to Ifeyinwa.
Hello, thank you very much, Theo, for that fantastic introduction. And I really do welcome everyone to this webinar as we'll recognize the World Sustainable Gastronomy Day. At IntelliDigest, we focus on food system sustainability. Our core vision is to ensure that no child goes to bed hungry, and this drives our mission to empower global food sustainability. So we work with stakeholders across the food system as we help them through this transition to adopting more sustainable practices that ensure that the food we eat does not have an impact on our health and environment. So while we talk about planning a sustainable food system today, I think it would really be great if we try to look at the food system as a whole and what that really entails. So in a nutshell, food system encompasses the entire range of actors and the interlinked value adding activities involved in the production, aggregation, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal of food produce that originate from agriculture, forestry, or fishery. So that is really a very wide scope and part of the broader economic, societal, and the natural environments in which they operate. So if you look at the food system wheel, it really throws light into the complexity of the food system. I think the FAO has the the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization have nicely produced this wheel trying to highlight the complexity of the food system, knowing that we have the core system, the societal elements, as well as the natural elements. All these play a huge influence on how the food we eat gets to our table, which at times we don't really appreciate. And the important thing about this is that as the food goes through the supply chain to the end of the supply chain, it does also affect in terms of the impact of the food. So, if you have something like a food loss or a food waste at the lower end of the supply chain, the impact is far less compared to when the food is wasted when it is on our plate. That's an entire discussion to have a different day, but I think it's really important to understand and to bring it at this stage to show that the complex in the food system really has is got a key role to play when we are trying to consider planning a sustainable food system. Now, why is this really important at this point? We noticed that there are changes in the food system because of rapid population growth, urbanization, growing wealth. Because as the economy of a nation grows, you find out that there's changes in terms of access to food and demand for food, because people naturally have more access to variety of food, or tend to have the resource to access variety of food, which then changes how people approach their diet. There's changing in consumption pattern, and also the issue around globalization, as well as climate change and depletion of natural resources. These are key factors that are really impacting on the food system. This is really why it's important that we need to plan our food system. So the developments in the food system have yielded many positive results recently. We have advances in technology. We can use a lot of gene editing. We talk about GMOs and stuff. We can use a lot of advanced technologies like photonic sensors, green chemistry, in what we do around the food system, whether in terms of developing different kind of seeds that have got different resistant varieties, or the kind of or making option in terms of understanding the genetics of different animals, and how we explore the genetics to be able to define which ones we want to rear, and which kind of animals we want to improve their production. So there's a lot that advances in technology has enabled us in recent times, and also wider understanding and data sets around different aspects of the food system. But the question is, do we still have some negative impact of these advances and changes in the food system? We really understand that these results include expansion of there's been a massive expansion in terms of how we grow food, and also a focus on monocropping, which is really having an adverse impact on the quality of produce that is made available to the wider society. So the associated rapid structural transformations have also resulted in increasing and significant challenges with potentially wide-reaching consequences for the state of food security and nutrition. This include mainly highly processed, high calorie and low nutritional value food items that we have in the market. And this is really why we talk about the food system sustainability challenges. So one thing is, we've done a lot in terms of having plenty, on the plate of people, but by having plenty, what exactly have we then also made room for? So what one staggering statistics which a lot of people do not connect with is that we are what we eat. 1 in 5 deaths is linked to malnutrition. What we eat does have a lot of impact on our health, and this really translate to what we call the public health issue, especially with very detrimental impact on our livelihood and also our health. So it's really something that we have to take cognizance of, and really work on how we can reduce the impact of the way we grow food, the way we consume food, reduce its impact on our health. Now, also, we understand that over 1.9 billion people are currently obese or overweight, and this is just one of the key points which I've mentioned earlier in terms of the low nutritional value of food items. So we produce a lot more, but it has less value, and because it produces a lot more, like I did point out, it boils down again to the issues around monocropping and increase in the use of pesticides, increase in the use of modified seeds that has lost value in terms of its natural capacity. So a lot of these plays a role in the food we eat, and how valuable, how nutritious that food is. And if it lacks that nutritional value, then we're losing quite a lot in terms of our wider health, and how society improves their health. So I think those are some of the points in terms of food system sustainability challenge. And we also know that over 1.3 billion tons of food we produce for human consumption is currently wasted. And in the midst of all these issues, we have over 900 million people who are still hungry, who don't have access to food. So I think when you look at these, few key statistics, it shows you that we kind of live in a world where we have a broken food system that needs to be fixed. And I'm sure that some of the other presenters who will be joining us later will throw more light to some of the things their organizations are doing. And I think this is kind of something that can only be delivered by having a joint effort to really tackle these key challenges within the food system. So I think, looking at these issues, it boils down to how do we then address these issues, and how do we then evolve a more sustainable food system by incorporating that key factor of planning. So, and this brings us to the question of how do we plan a sustainable food system? But before we jump into that, I think it's really important for us to understand, we talk about food system wheel, the interaction between the different elements of the food system, the core system, the societal elements, and the natural elements, and how they influence each other in the way food is delivered to our plates. But also, it's important to also look at how do you then define what a sustainable food system? So a sustainable food system is a food system that delivers food security and nutrition for all in such a way that the economic, social, and environmental basis to generate food security and nutrition for future generations are not compromised. Very important. We need to look at what we call the C, so SEE, the social, the environmental, and the economic aspect. So it's core to ensuring that our food system is sustainable. So when we talk about economic aspects, we need to make sure that our farmers are properly compensated for the effort and the work they do, that you provide the right level for the people working in the farm because the farm is able to sustain itself economically. And also that comes to every other stakeholder within the food system, that every other core player within the sustainable food system is able to thrive economically, and that we pay the true cost of the food we eat, because that will have an impact also when it comes to our relationship with our food. And not only the economic aspect of the food, we talk about the social aspect. What is public health? And this is where you have the public health angle of it. So what is the social impact? How is the food we're eating helping to evolve our cultural diversity, our health, and also the wider social impact that we can get from eating the right quality of food? So, and this is where we talk about social aspect of food system sustainability. Then we have the environmental sustainability, where we look at the flora and the fauna around the where we produce and grow our food, and also the different processes that the food goes through before it gets to a table. How do we ensure that the way we produce, distribute, and consume food has less impact on the environment and does not negatively affect our immediate environment, our ecology? I think it's really important that when we talk about sustainable food system, that we look into these core areas. So I think when we talk about food sustainability, we need to take a holistic approach to thinking and doing doing things that consider the food system in its totality, taking into account all the elements, the relationships, and related effects. It's not confined to one single sector or subsystem or the food system or discipline, and thus broadens the framing and analysis of a particular issue as a result of an intricate web of interlinked activities and feedbacks. It considers all relevant causal variables of a problem and all the social, environmental, and economic impacts of the solutions to achieve transformational systemic challenges. As such, the food system approach addresses the limitations of many traditional approaches to improving food security and nutrition, which tend to be sectorial, with either a narrowly defined focus that leads to technical fixes, which are subjected to the scope of one ministry or public agency, or which use systemic thinking to tackle objectives but are limited to subsystems. Hence, encouraging development practitioners and policymakers to see bigger picture, we also help to facilitate multi-stakeholder collaboration and policy coordination at different levels to promote a more balanced relationship and jointly address future challenges. So why there'll be trade-offs to be made, that is between key priorities of the food system, such as poverty reduction, increased agricultural productivity, improved nutrition, and hence environmental sustainability. There'll also be opportunities to simultaneously accomplish multiple objectives. A food system approach can help identify such synergies as well as facilitate the coordination needed to achieve them. Um, I think it's really important to take into consideration these key points. And if we're able to do all those key points rightly, we will be able to achieve a food system that provides healthy diet, prevent and reduce food loss and waste, is able to address and deliver climate neutral food chain, which means that the way the food is moved across the food system mostly results in less impact on the environment, and in most cases the food is far more closer to the end consumer, where we then support a lot of local food production that ends up reducing the mileage of most of the food we consume, which is where we want to be in the future. So we talk about resource efficient food chain, where we ensure that we effectively use circular economy, circular bioeconomy in the way we produce and grow food, so that we are more resource efficient, whether in terms of energy use or material use within the farm. We're thinking through each and every one of this process in a way that is really resource efficient. We want to have an inclusive growth and employment in the food system, so that we ensure that even when we use seasonal workers, we are using them in a way that also has got a positive impact on them. They're able to earn the right remuneration for the work they do, and also the farmers who do this work are able to recover good value for the effort they put in the farm. So it's just ensuring inclusive growth, and for the farmers, and also for those working in the farm, they have a positive experience within the employment. They have what we call value creation through partnerships. Is about exploring or delivering ways that different stakeholders within the food system can partner to deliver a sustainable food system. So that might include how local food producers are making their food produce available to the local consumers. More importantly, sourcing for good. I think this very much connects with a resource efficient food chain, but I think is a key point here that anyone within the food chain should think about how are they sourcing their produce, and are they doing it in a way that's got a positive impact for the society and for the environment. And ultimately we'll come back to the healthy diets, which means that if we do these things right, we will have better produce. We must have adopted more sustainable practices, which moves away from more intensive farming practices to more sustainable practices, whether it's in terms of crop produce. Talk about crop rotation, mixed farming, integrated pest management. All these are more sustainable practices. And when it comes to livestock farming, how do we rear our animals for the future, make them more inclusive, make them more adaptable in a way that they can resist a lot of infections and less of use of antibiotics, and also intensive farming practices that we do have today. So all these are really important to evolve in a sustainable food system. And once we're able to do all this, these are the things we aim to achieve. So if we are trying to measure a sustainable food system, these are the key points we expect to be measured, and in how we are doing with regards to these key points, we determine how much we have transitioned to a sustainable food system. Just to mention that these are also the targets by the EU to delivering a sustainable food system, which is currently being worked on on the farm to fork policy. So, what is IntelliDigest doing? in terms of supporting this food system sustainability. Our vision is a world where no child goes to bed hungry, and this drives our mission to empower global food sustainability. As you can see, we actually do work across the food system, from production to processing to distribution to consumption and disposal. Our key aim is really identifying where the bottlenecks are and trying to dismantle those bottlenecks in a way that doesn't affect the existing players within the food system, but rather support them as they transition to more sustainable practices. So, what do we do in terms of technology innovations? We develop technologies to help the food system. We have what we call the World Food Tracker, which is the eye tracker, and the World Food Tracker can be used by anyone that engages with food, which is fundamentally you and I, and also the players within the food system. The World Food Tracker is a very innovative solution. It's a game-changing solution that's enabling consumers, you and I, to be able to plan our meal. And because we plan our meal, the data sets can help local farmers produce more sustainably. And because they can adopt more sustainable practices, because they know what you want as a consumer, as an end user, then they can plan how they produce these food items for you. And this also helps with with addressing so many of the challenges we have in society today, especially with regards to how to ensure that we improve on the food we eat and our diet and our consumption. So because the consumer is planning their meal, they're having a better insight to what they're eating. So you're not eating on the go, you're thinking about what you're eating, you're planning on what you're eating, you're having a way to monitor and track your nutritional consumption, and you can also improve your diet and what you're eating through the platform. And you also have access to a whole host of consultants if you need help with planning your diet, whether for health issues or for any other issue that's relevant to you. And then the cool thing about all this is that because you're doing all this, more farmers could actually supply exactly those food items. And because they have that prior information, they can plan to do that more sustainably. And more importantly, we can reduce a lot of the pressure on rural communities for food production, because then we can have more decentralized local food production within the urban environment, thereby opening up opportunities for our rural environments to focus on more large scale production for export where it is necessary, or for other improvements within the rural environment where we want to see more development within a rural sector, and not subjecting our rural sector as a farming environment, but really bringing our rural sectors to life so that people can actually live anywhere, and also reduce pressure on migration to urban centers. So there's quite a lot of benefit with this approach, or kind of systemic food system approach thinking, which really helps not just the end user improving their nutrient consumption and attitude to food, but also helping the wider society with improving the ecosystem and supporting the farmers to produce in a very sustainable way, reducing also the supply, the food chain in terms of mileage, because more food are produced locally to meet the demands of local consumers and local end users. And apart from the World Food Tracker, which has got these unique features, which I encourage you to look out for, we do have the iDigest Unit. This is a robot bio-upcycler, and it can be put anywhere the food waste is produced, in households, in restaurants, in virtually anywhere, canteens, and it helps recover bionutrients from food waste to use back into food production, overall improving the wider ecosystem. And we also have a system, the iSaver, that enhances the life cycle, the lifespan of the food item, the fresh produce, so that we don't have food going away easily, and also helps to ease the distribution of food within local environments. So these are the one of the key, produce we want to highlight today. We also have a lot of work we're doing with farmers, looking at how the food is produced and how we can automate a lot of the processes, especially with when you talk about low scale food production and moving away from large scale monocropping. There's a lot of gap in terms of availability of technology to adapt to this system of farming. So those are the kind of things we're also working with the farmers to evolve. And also, one of the key things we want to see through those developments is that more people can engage with food system and food production, and really bringing in technology to advance that, having this planned food system. Just like the way if you want to build your house, you don't just set up bricks. You have to make a design of your house plan. You have to ensure that your house is properly designed to meet the load it's going to be at, and everything, and the reinforcements are well calculated. The same way, this is what we're doing within the food system. We're helping to design future food system in such a way that the technology can be applied to it to improve wider engagement, especially for the young people to engage with the food system. Think about having being able to automate the growing of your vegetables and fruits within your premises in the future. These are the things we want to evolve so that your food waste which you generate in your house can be used back in producing food locally within your environment. So you can select those key fruits and veg that you really need in terms of daily consumption, and you'll be able to automate that process of producing. So those are the areas we're looking at, and trying to evolve new ways of ensuring that we meet our nutritional gap, we get good food available to more people in the future. It reduces the strain on the wider food production system, and it also enables more players to be able to participate within the food system, especially for young people who really want to be part of the food system, but they cannot imagine themselves being existing food producers and being going to till the soil and do the hard work. We want to ensure that technology advances can help us engage with them and deliver that. And that is why we run the food system sustainability program. And we also have the global agri-food techpreneur program, which engages young people to think about solving food system sustainability challenges within their countries. I will encourage you to check our website, look out for these different programs that we have, the Plan to Save campaign, the master classes on food system sustainability, and the food industry sustainability index, which is a very powerful tool for those who want to measure, monitor their sustainability profile within the food system. This is very important to be able to showcase this and help you understand what you're doing and how you're delivering value within the food system. We also work with a lot of international organizations and research institutions as part of our product development. If you're interested in working with us, we encourage you to get in touch because we want to continue to advance food system sustainability. Thank you so much for being part of the discussion today. We are going to feed over 10 billion people by 2050. We don't want to wait till 2050. We already have a target through the Sustainable Development Goals to speed that action to meet specific targets by 2030. One of the key words is to have food waste by 2030, and also to ensure that we have nutritious food for more people by 2030 by ending hunger. So we have key milestones we need to achieve as quickly as possible to be able to feed over 10 billion people by 2050, and we want you to join us in delivering this sustainable food system. I'll be happy to take your questions at the end of this presentation during the panel session. But thank you so much for being part of the discussion today.
Thank you for the interesting points that you raised